What the organization basically does is provide mental health support to people experiencing this kind of disorders in our society, in our community. So that is the brief description I can give you about myself. Thank you.
Interesting. We're discussing mental health, and the people of Uganda and the listener. You have heard from my guests in the studios, uh, specialists only. And I believe that we are going to learn more about this issue, and we're going to discover and ourselves and for our family, but also for our friends. We would love to provide a solution to this challenge, in that we reduce on this rampant or increase of mental cases in Uganda. As previously, we had the executive director of Tabeka National Referral Mental Hospital, Dr. Juliet Naku. She put it that before COVID-19, they would receive around 550 bed capacity hospital, uh, which they received. They have the bed capacity of 550, but they would receive between 900 and 950 patients. But she says now it has increased to 1,000 and 1,050 in admission at the facility. This means that the number has increased, and this is a challenge not only to the referral hospital, but to a country and to every citizen of Uganda should be concerned, because we don't know what is next. And also, Tabika, some specialists from Tabika said that a number of cases that they're receiving nowadays are emanating from high usage of internet. People are frustrated. People are doing a lot in internet. We are spending much of our time on phones, on computers, and we forget that there is life beyond and after. And that has somehow, somewhere, affected the mental capacity of the people of Uganda. The question is, are we using more internet than the other communities or other countries? How can we best regulate this as a country, household, or as citizens or as individuals? I've more often had a family somewhere, a story that when they are going to have a meal, the mother in that home requests all the children, the husband, even if you are a visitor, you first hand over your phone and then you are served food. And when they ask that a lady or that woman, wife or mother in that family, she said, before I started this, I would serve food and no one would eat, because everyone would concentrate on their phones and they would forget the meal in front of them. And the meal that I would serve, if you would eat, I would still take my plates full of food when people are busy using their phones. We have reached that extent where people no longer eat. We have reached the extent where people in church or places of worship no longer greet the neighbors or listen to the sermon when they are busy on their phones. We have made our phones the church, we have made our phones the mosques, we have made the phones our close relatives and friends. And Tabaka Referral Hospital says it has so much affected our mental health. We have been joined now by Kenneth Karani, a psychiatrist and senior medical officer from Ministry of Health. Now that I hadn't started, you may also greet and introduce yourself to the people of Uganda. Welcome, Kenneth.
Thank you. And good morning, our listeners. I'm called Dr. Kenneth Kalani, as mentioned. I'm a psychiatrist and senior medical officer at the Ministry of Health of Uganda. I'm really happy to be here today.
Interesting. Interesting. Let me start with you, Andrew. You have founded, you are a co-founder of Free Mind Therapy. Before you found or started or initiated or established this Free Mind Therapy, you must have been inspired or must have done a research of what this mind you want free and with which therapy. What was your finding? What inspired you? And where does this take in as far as the increased cases of mental issues and mental cases in the community of Uganda?
So much, Amon. To begin with, mental health or the increase of mental disorders in our society is on the rise because of very many factors, and this is not something new in our society and in our communities. Growing up as a young child, um, the situations that you experience within your family, within the society, within school, that trigger your need to understand how probably how this affects factors, let's say, are related to violence, fights, things like maybe financial hardship, uh, and so on and so on. These are things that happen within the community. And as any other normal person, this is something that should draw attention to ask, why is this happening within the community? So as a young individual who grew up in a society where you interact, see things happening, things that shouldn't be happening, it drew my attention to find out what can be done about such cases. And I drew my inspiration out of experience, out of what I experienced as a child. So I can say what I passed through is what motivated me to study. What I experienced is what motivated me to start up an initiative that can be impactful in society. And when you look at figures uh, 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 that relate to the rise of mental health through the years, you'll get to realize these figures have kept on increasing. When you look at the previous years, let's say before COVID set in, mental health cases were prevalent among basically the youth, who account for almost 79% of Uganda's population. That's roughly 36 million people. These are youths who go through hard times, let's say financially, things, marital related issues, work related issues, um, uh, and so on and so forth. So you get to realize that cases of mental health have been rising, and it drew attention for any human being to devise solutions to see how to have it tackled.
Interesting. Brian, the state of mental health in as far as Uganda is concerned.
Thank you, Amon. And Once again, good morning to listeners. I want to welcome other panelists who has joined us. Thank you, Dr. Kenneth, for coming. Family violence is sometimes included in the one of the reasons why they include family violence, background, nature or nurture, or experience or group influence. But what is really mental health? What do we define, or what do we talk about when we say mental health? Which one is a perfect mental state and which one is not? I think in my findings I've not discovered who they talk about as a fine mentally person, because I've been here and I've told you listeners that mind changes every time and again, depending on the circumstances one is operating in or is living in. The way you came here in the morning is not the way you are, and is not the way you live. So things keeps changing. But then the role of a psychologist in understanding what mental health is about is to study, analyze, predict the behaviors of an individual from time to time. And once you're exposed to understanding that, then you can draw a line between a person who is mentally stable, who is mild, and who is mentally unstable. So you asked, why is it so rampant now that health, there is a health crisis about this? Yes, we must accept that even when you don't want to change reaches time and changes you, either with your notice, consent, or without. So change must change you. We are in an internet era, technology, and surely that's something that we can avoid at this moment or even regulate. We can try, but then you can only fight a war which you know its purpose and its direction. The users and manufacturers of internet are the ones that direct it to their interest. Now, in attribution to that, Africans, like if I zero it to Uganda, you will really find that about 70% or so are using only internet for their social life, not business. They want to go on TikTok and laugh. They want to go on Facebook and comment. They want to go on WhatsApp, chat with friends, but they are not using internet for commercial. And that is not the target of the whites. Number two, the content developers, people who develop content on internet and post or make it available for the public to consume, do not regulate it themselves or do not put a clear message to why they have put such content to the public. Number three, bad news is the good news. Most people do not really look at the important things which are put on internet as important. At this moment, I would be expecting even most of the libraries, by the way, to be in crisis, a very big crisis, because now, what book can't you access really? That you need to go down in deep in the library and on the street to look for that book, or which inspiration song or message or a speech that you can't really find because you have no access of CD or flash or memory card. So therefore, Africans, particularly Ugandans, have not come to understand the purpose of internet, so they are not using it for the purpose of good, but they are misusing it. The other thing we could look at is, and I like where Andrew started from. Maybe I should have started with that. As a psychologist, I should be in a better position to inform listeners of UBC and Ground Zero that we are who we are because of where we've grown from and who we've grown with, what we may call nature and nurture. Amon and listeners, if you could draw attention to where you all came from, you really get the context of what nature can play in human development and what nature can play in one's growth. Yeah, because there is a difference between growth and development. One is measured, another one can't be measured. He pointed out a very good point that what I grew experiencing as an individual inspired me to look for the solution, meaning that in areas or in communities where we grow from, there is a negligence. Sometimes people misuse this word of mad. In science, we don't have mad people. We have mentally disturbed. We have sick people, but not mad people. Now, when there is a negligence of such things that are happening in the community, some take them positively, like Andrew did. Others lose themselves. Those are the people now who submit to what nature has put on them. And the other key area is the strength to absorb what the pressure is, what the pressure that the community is exerting on you in your situation. Like if things are not going in the right direction, who comes out to judge you? Who comes to support you? Implying there is a higher need of community support for everyone to overcome the issue of mental stability. Even when you even at this moment when you are not yet isolated and be put to Taruka, it doesn't rule you out that you are a mentally stable person. That should really click on every Ugandan mind and everyone who is. The fact that you are at home, at work, in church, wherever, does not make you qualify that you are mentally stable. You may have successfully managed to understand your situation and you know how to deal with it. Secondly, you may have no force around to make you draw a check on yourself or even other people to check on how mentally stable you are. Then we also need to look at how mentally, Amon, I should also explain to you that mental does not only start when a person is grown up. No. In pregnancy, there's what we call stages of pregnancy. Prenatal. When you go to trimesters, there is trimester 1, trimester 2, trimester 3, and each are bisected in 3 months, okay? And when you give birth, from day 1, there are stages of growth, and they go up to 9 stages. But then let us look at how people manage pregnancies. Over time, Amon, would you believe, and listeners who are listening to UBC Radio, that today children start growing at 7 months, they even understand everything that is taking place around their parents and all that, but people don't know how to keep pregnancy and raise pregnancy. You find a man or a community is provoking a pregnant woman. Nobody is paying attention to her. She goes to hospital for antenatal. Everyone is jumping her. Everyone is put. Nobody is bothered to take care and concern of this person. And once you cannot offer love when you have not been loved.
Indeed. All right.
And lastly, on that very point, this generation is really amazing. Somebody wakes up in the morning and calls, maybe the father or one of the pregnancies is not at home. The mother picks a call, calls the dad, and puts the phone on the stomach that, please, can you talk to the baby? He's listening to you. Yes, it is okay, it's good, and those children can communicate, but not technologically. So let us also look at how we manage pregnancies, how we treat pregnant people. And Amoni, you did very good to bring me here and also bring me to discuss the challenges of mental health, where I must take task to explain that this does not only start when a person is moving and can be able to say, hello, how are you? I'm fine. It all begins from the time of conception, how you've prepared, how you've gone through the stages of pregnancy, the first 9 stages of childhood, prenatal, the toileting behavior training, up to 12 years. Once a person has gone beyond 12 years and above, then you've got to use other mechanisms which are conditioned, either negatively hard conditioned or positively hard conditioned, to make sure that this person changes behavior. But note that every person who you look around stable is mentally stable. No.
All right. I remember in the previous engagements that we had still on this show, you said that all of us are mentally.
Oh, yes. All of us are,
mentally
we
sick.
have an element of mental instability. It depends on how one deals with you. Otherwise, if somebody come and tickles you from behind, it's reactional. You can end up beating somebody with a microphone, and people will be like, "What? We've never seen Amon like this."
React like
And then
this.
for those who don't understand that people react, they may end up handcuffing you. Before we know, they are calling me to assess you
Indeed.
in the corridors.
Thank you, Brian. Let me have Dr. Kenneth Karani.
Thank you so much.
Is it by nature or nurture that we have these cases?
Thank you so much. And I think I'm to talk about the state of mental health in Uganda. Okay. So I always like starting the talk by first defining what mental health is, and then we link mental health, mental illness, and maybe a few stresses here and there, and then I'll talk about the common conditions that we are facing as a country. So mental health is defined as the state of well-being in which an individual is able to know their abilities, able to cope with the day-to-day stresses of life, able to work productively and fruitfully, able to make meaningful relationships, and able to contribute to his or her society. With that definition, you realize that it is the simple things we do on a daily basis, and that means you cannot live without being mentally well. So what that tells us is that we all have mental health, and we are all mentally healthy. Because of the stigma that is attached to mental health, many times when people hear the word mental health, they are quick to look at mental illness and that person, walking on the streets and maybe naked and hoarding rubbish. But that is not the picture of mental health. So everyone is mentally healthy. And maybe the degree is what varies. That in our day-to-day circumstances, we face very stressful challenges in life. You wake up in the morning, a typical person, maybe me and you wake up in the morning. Sometimes things don't go the way you want. You plan, sometimes you have so many needs around you and limited resources to meet those needs. So when you're in such circumstances, we say you're stressed. Mostly stress is when you're in a situation where the needs you have outweigh the resources you have to meet the needs. I will just state this as an individual. I have school fees. I'm a father. I'm a brother somewhere. I'm a son somewhere. I have friends. I have a job. I have maybe school. I have so many things around me, and all those things need my energy and thought. And the resources can be, emotional resources, can be financial resources, can be even physical resources. So sometimes you find that you do not have enough resources to meet all the needs around you, and once you're in that circumstance, we say you're stressed. So stress checks our mental well-being. So every time you're stressed, you have an issue. We say you have a mental health issue because you're stressed. You're not thinking well. It affects your mental well-being. So it affects your capacity to perform properly. It affects your capacity to think. It affects the way you behave as well. And so stresses are dealt with. The beauty is that many people, or the majority of people, can cope with stress or manage it. So that's why I wake up in the morning, or I have trouble sleeping in one day because I have a particular issue worrying me, or something that did not go well. And then by the next day, I am done with it. That means I've managed, I've found a solution to deal with it. Some people do not cope well. And sometimes when they don't cope well, they take to alcohol and substances. Others take to violence and aggression. Others will fight. Others will, you have all sorts of reactions. Some people even can commit suicide or self-harm. All these are negative coping strategies, or bad coping ways, or bad ways of dealing with the stresses that we face. Other people can manage the stresses well and go on well. So if you stay in a stressed circumstance or situation for a long time without actually managing that stress, you can get a mental health issue. Okay, so when you get mental health issue, that means you're basically getting symptoms of mental illness. And if you continue staying in a stressed circumstance for a very long time, you can go on and develop a mental illness. And the types of mental illnesses that are linked with stresses and day to day challenges of life are common. And this is depression, this is anxiety disorders, and alcohol and substance use. These are the most common ones. And I think I'll focus commonly on those because they're the illnesses that we face on a day to day basis, but we do not see or do not realize that we actually have them. So, what is a mental illness? A mental illness is really a disorder of the brain. And I want to make this very categorically clear for the listeners that mental illness is an illness that affects the brain. Just like you can't have a liver disease, you can't have a heart disease, you can't have a kidney disease. Mental illness affects the brain because now brain is the organ. But because it affects the brain, and because the brain controls the way we think, the brain controls the way we behave, and the brain controls the way we feel, mental illnesses affect those three. So someone with a mental illness will have a disturbed behavior, will feel or think differently, and may also behave differently from the way we know them or we previously knew them. And there are many types of mental illnesses, but the common ones, as I've mentioned, particularly those that are linked with the day to day situations and challenges in life, is depression, anxiety, and alcohol and substance use disorder. There are other severe mental illnesses, for example, schizophrenia, the one, people. Those are severe mental illnesses. You can see someone maybe moving around or holding rubbish, moving naked, or talking to themselves,
Mm.
or hearing people talking to them. That is an extreme mental illness. There are others, for example, bipolar affective disorder, where someone, swings below between very high mood and low mood. And even there are other childhood mental illnesses that I won't go on to mention.
And chronic psychosis.
Yes, so chronic psychosis is actually
How is it different from what you've just explained, the bipolar disorder?
So chronic psychosis is actually schizophrenia. So schizophrenia, psychosis is a bigger term to term all mental illnesses that present with, I think, 5 key symptoms, and one of which is hearing things that, we call them hallucinations. Then the other is the delusions, where people believe they are things that they are not. And then it also affects behavior, and then it can cause what they call negative symptoms, where people suddenly are withdrawn from the society. So there are a cluster of symptoms that classify disorders of psychosis. So psychosis is a bigger term, but if you go on to distinguish them, you can find schizophrenia, for example, is a psychotic disorder. Even bipolar is a psychotic disorder,
And even severe depression.
depression may or may not be a psychotic disorder, but that is just for the clarification. Yeah. So now let me just quickly or briefly talk about how common these things are for a country like Uganda, and maybe link them with the causes why these things are increasing at this rate. So as I've mentioned, that the common mental illnesses are basically alcohol alcohol and substance use disorder, depression, and anxiety. So how common is depression? Globally, they say, the global statistics say that depression, the prevalence of depression can be up to 1 in 4 in a lifetime. But we've not had very clear studies or national prevalence studies in the country, and sometimes we depend on statistics from global burden of disease. So there's WHO, works around to see which countries have which illnesses, and so through modeling they come up with some figures. So for depression particularly, they estimate that 5.5, approximately 5 in 100 people have depression. Okay. Anxiety is also around.
That's 5%.
Yeah, that's 5%. And then alcohol and particularly alcohol use, they estimate that 9.8, that's approximately 10 in 100 people have alcohol use disorder. And I want you to note the difference between alcohol use and alcohol use disorder. Now, that is according to the statistics. We have also seen, and on observation, that these mental illnesses are on the rise. For example, we've noted alcohol and substance use is on the rise, particularly amongst the young people. We've noted depression is on the rise, and this can come from reports from Butabika Hospital and all the regional referral hospitals around that treat these conditions. And we've even noted anxiety. And we've even noted that suicide rates are on the rise, and this happens at schools, at workplaces, and so on and so forth.
And homes.
So why are these things increasing? We have had changes, and I heard you talk about a story. I don't know where it came from, but I could pick you're painting a picture of changes in cultural values, changes in the way we believe and see things.
Social values.
Yeah, and social values. So as a country, there is this aspect of industrialization, and we have very many things coming up. The economy is increasing. People need to work as hard. The population is increasing. The resources have remained the same. So we are having challenges basically accessing basic needs with ease. We are having challenges accessing medical care, challenges accessing food, challenges accessing shelter and goods and places of sleep, and so on and so forth. So as a result, people have to work twice as hard. Some people, even despite the work, they do not have these things. If you do not have basic needs, or you cannot secure some of these things, you're going to be very, very stressed. Okay. And I've told you, that's why I started the link between stress and mental illness. That if you stay in a state of stress for a long time, you can develop a mental illness. And that is what we are happening. Parents do not know what to do, because you need to work with us. When we were being raised, when I was raised as a community child. Everybody would take care of you. My mother was probably at home, and their duty was to take care of me.
And these days it is none of my business. Everyone is concentrating on their own business.
Yes.
We don't mind about the children.
I don't want to say that they actually don't mind about the children, but I think the circumstance dictates so. Because we have to work.
We are busy.
Yeah, we need money from both angles. The mother needs money, the father needs money, and we need to work. We leave our children home. These children also need our care. Sometimes we don't have time to transfer the value that we have in them, and so they are conflicted. We are living in a third world country, but they're watching TV, they are watching things, and they are taking in content from first world country. So children grow up when they are confused, and these cause conflicts. And these conflicts cause issues in children, and sometimes they can develop mental illnesses.
Mm.
In schools, there is a lot of stress, there is a lot of pressure, there is a lot of pressure to perform, there's academic pressure. This causes conflicts in children. In
Okay.
workplaces, there is so much pressure also in the workplaces. So, in a nutshell, as I conclude, is that mental illnesses are on the rise. And I've tried so hard not to focus on the severe mental illnesses that we know, but focus on the common mental illnesses such as anxiety, depression, and alcohol and substance use. The people that suffer from these things are in the communities, are in the schools, are in the workplaces, are people like you and I. And
Mm.
we ought to know how these symptoms present, and we ought to know what to do, and we need to have a collective responsibility to address and tackle these issues. Otherwise, we are going to face a lot of challenges as a country.
Interesting. You've been a doctor, Kenneth, for some time, and you in this industry or field, you must have been experiencing a number of cases. How would you rate? Because we're talking about increased number of mental cases, but we don't know this number. Is it worrying? Should we worry, or it is manageable?
We should worry, and particularly we should worry because of the trends that are
Mm.
happening. And I will follow a structure that is in a form of a pyramid,
Mm.
yeah. And as I've linked the sources of common stress and with industrialization, with population growth, the resources, the stress factors, or the factors that predispose us to having mental ill health are becoming more and more.
Mm.
Okay. And that means if you project over the years, we are going to have more and more increasing cases, as you've noted, and that's why mental health is a topic of discussion today,
Mm.
because it is obviously a problem. Utabika, for example, has a bed capacity of 550, but it's overwhelmed. They've hit the 1,000 mark, even if you went
Mm.
now and counted the number of patients. That means patients with severe mental illnesses are becoming more. But again, Utabika is at the top of the peak or the pyramid. These are people with very severe mental illnesses. How about the people in the communities? How about the people in the homes? These people are not going anywhere, and yet they are suffering silently with their mental illnesses.
Mm.
And how do we note that? We note that through suicide rates, okay? We note that through acts of violence and trauma. We note that through the increase in alcohol and substance use, because sometimes people use alcohol and substances to numb their feelings or negative feelings or their stresses that they feel. So we find that these numbers are also increasing. We note that through performance at workplaces, and so on and so forth. So we need to worry and we need to act. If we do not act, and as I've told you, that as you've noted now from the discussion, mental health is a cross-cutting issue.
Anyone can be a victim.
Anyone, as long as you have a brain, you're not protected. So because it's the disease of the brain, as I started and I mentioned in my talk. But again, it is not only for Ministry of Health, or it's not only a health issue. You note, we have learners in schools, we have people in the communities, we have people in the workplaces, we have people everywhere. And all sectors are affected, every place is affected. And if we are to address these issues, we need strategies that will take care of people at their places of work or where they stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. The listener, we are addressing the challenge of an increased number of mental cases in Uganda, as we have given the statistics um, by the specialists that I have in the studios, VBC, but also from the report that we have from Batabika Referral Hospital. It is worrying, and the doctor says the number and the rate at which the mental issues or cases are increasing is worrying, and everyone is a victim. So it should be a concern to every Ugandan. In the studios of UBC, I have Kenneth Karani, is a psychiatrist and senior medical officer from the Ministry of Health. I have Andrew Deo Ngo Paras, co-founder Free Mind Therapy, and I have anaitwa Brian, is a psychology counselor at Chambogo University and Nakasero Hospital. Ambaire Aman Utega is my name. This is UBC Radio. We're also live and clear on Western Isle Radio, Table Radio, and Magic 100 FM. But we're also streaming live on YouTube. You just enter UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of this conversation. In case you want to participate or contribute or want to ask anything in this program, send your message on 0701 24 26 47, or you can call us live on 776 511 426. Dave, we have heard from the fellow, I call them specialist, psychologist, and a counselor. You are youth, and Karane says the rate at which Uganda has reached is worrying. And also, Brian says we are all victims, and everyone can be candidate or a victim. And also, Mtumba, Dr. Mtumba Yama, who is the Deputy Executive Director of Tapika Hospital, of recent said that 90% of the cases registered at the facility are young adults between the age of 18 and 25. These are the pillars of this country. This is the future of Uganda. If 18 to 25 years are mentally ill, who become addicts of drug abuse and reported drinking alcohol and the rest, and internet, where is the future of this country? Free mind therapy.
Thank you, Amon. I like how my colleague Brian and Dr. Kenneth have put this in limelight. They've said clearly how these mental health issues are affecting our society, and it is becoming something so big that needs urgent intervention. Statistically put by Dr. Kenneth, you realize, I think the statistics that are displayed out there probably doesn't give more of a clear picture when you go into communities. Because personally, I have reached out to so many communities. I have interacted with students, both at higher institutions of learning. I have moved through the slums of Kampala and upcountry, and you get to find out that the issue around mental illness is on the rise beyond what it is depicted in the statistics. And the challenge is, as highlighted by Dr. Kenneth, these people who experience this kind of mental disorders, if you come to the hospital or to these centers where they're able to be managed, but even the others who are left out are not in position to get probably the support, let's say the mental health needs they would actually get to put them in a position to, let's say, operate well within the society. As free mind therapy and as a practitioner who has been in the field for quite long, I have and we have participated in what they call reach outs and awareness to let people know the dangers, the implications of this kind of mental disorders if not addressed. We have done this through, let's say, campaigns. We have written articles, and apparently with my other doctor colleagues at Makerere, we're conducting some study to find out how best this can be solved in society. When you look at the statistics, let's say after between 2020 2021 up to now, you'll get to realize that there is a sharp rise of mental health cases by almost roughly 10%, because within that period of COVID, we had roughly 24% of Ugandans experiencing this kind of mental disorder. But apparently, as displayed by Ministry of Health and WHO, you'll get to see that it has risen to almost 33 to 34 million, which is about 36%. As earlier mentioned, the youth in Uganda are the majority. And these are the people these are, I can say, the pillar of the economy, because these are the people who should be working to, let's say, take the country ahead. But these are the people who are highly affected, and they account for about 79%, which is about 38 million.
Okay.
So you realize there is a problem in our communities, that must be tackled. And to tackle it, as highlighted by Dr. Kalani, you realize it needs a concerted effort from all people. It shouldn't actually be left only to the Ministry of Health and, let's say, the medical practitioners and so on. So there is a challenge that must be tackled, and to tackle it, we need a concerted effort.
Okay. Interesting. This is UBC Ground Zero. Ampere Amonotega is my name, and we're discussing a very important topic at UBC. We're addressing the challenge of increased number of mental cases in Uganda. It is increasing and should worry all of us, because any one of us is a victim. We're taking a very short break, and we're coming back in a bit. Keep your messages coming through. I have seen a number of them, and I'll be reading them and receiving your calls on 776 511 426, and you suggest what needs to be done to reduce mental disorder, mental illness, mental sickness, or madness, as we call it, in our societies. Ground Zero takes a very short break. We're coming back in a bit. I pray that you don't have to go away.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about that. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the personal tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Your favorite national, accurate, balanced, concise and comprehensive newscast. News Hour aired at 1 p.m. from Monday to Friday, right here on UBC Radios. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
This is Independent Sound.
UBC has 11 sister radio stations spread throughout the country to educate, inform, and entertain. Tune in to UBC Radio FM 98, your national radio station, Magic 100, where sports and music is our life. 87.5 Star FM in Uganda, 97.4 UBC West covering Western Uganda, 102 Mega FM in Gulu, 97 FM Butebo Radio in Eastern Uganda, 107.0 Buduri FM, 100.5 Nge FM in Kasese, 98.0 West Nile FM in Arua, Total Ray Radio FM 90 in Karamoja, and 93.0 Voice of Mundbujo. Now you're covered in your local language.
UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda. Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Dear listener, welcome back from that very short break. This is UBC Ground Zero. Ampere Amon Utega is my name, and we're talking about addressing the challenge of increased number of mental cases in Uganda. And in the studios of UBC, I have Adnaito Brain, a psychology counselor coming from Chambogo University and Nakasero Hospital. We have Andrew Dewo Ongo Paras, Ongo La Paz, is the co-founder of Free Mind Therapy, and I have Kenneth Karani, is a psychiatrist and senior medical officer coming from Ministry of Health. We are live on 4 radio stations: UBC Radio here in Kampala, Western Isle FM in Western Isle. We are also live and clear on Table Radio in eastern parts of this country, and also Match 100 FM covering central parts of this country. We're also streaming live. Just enter UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of the conversation. Keep your messages coming through. We'll be reading one by one. And also you can reach us on 776 511-426 and tell us what you think needs to be done in this country to reduce mental challenges, mental health, and mental cases in Uganda. UBC?
Hello,
You're live and clear.
I'm on. How are you?
Very fine, thank you, sir.
Very great for me to hear you now, Agmon.
Thank you, sir.
I'm on the problem of mental illness. Really, I want people to agree with me. The government has contributed a lot
to make people mentally ill,
disturbed. Yes, because I'm not seeing the reason why a young child can take a parent to police because you have disciplined him or her. And the police comes and disorganizes you while you are tampering with the rights of what? Of a child. If it is like a neighbor's child, when you say that don't do this, he has to respond to you in a funny way saying that, who are you telling me this? Really, I'm on the way we were brought up. No. The government has really put the population really in a wrong situation. Because children is not for one person, it's for all. Whoever is older than you have to give a respect. But today, you find a younger boy of around 11 years having a circuit of a warrant. But when you say that, man, you're still young, why do you do this? You will see the word. You cannot even believe that it's really a child of 11 years. So those are the comments I'm saying that if a government
so you're saying that both in discipline and mental health, the government has a hand in it.
Exactly.
They have given a lot of freedom
which is uncontrollable. And you see, when you go beyond that, you know that you already the mental. Yes.
Interesting.
Thanks very much, Ramon, and I really don't know when maybe I will call you.
All right. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
You're welcome, sir.
God bless you.
Nice time.
The government has a hand. UBC Radio.
Yes, this is Arnold Kaguta from Naguru.
Andrew Kaguta.
Arnold
Kaguta.
Yes.
Thank you for being part of the show. Your concern, please.
Thanks for this wonderful program. I'm amazed when I hear those people trying to get on this. Actually, mental health becoming rampant. The challenge which they have really said is actually me. I blame the government a bit. I appreciate them, but I blame them on this. You know, we are at a situation whereby the government is its workers. That is on the side of the work. You know, you go through a lot, but you are not supposed because that is touching the freedom of speech.
Mm.
You know, are you getting me?
Yes, I'm getting you, sir.
Yes, the freedom of, you know, when you are going through a certain situation in job, you have to say it out. There are people who are working under a stress up condition whereby you can't run and say this one is wrong. And when someone goes through that and you don't have where to explain it, where people will not judge you, you will really contain that. You take it internally in yourself, and at the end of it all, it blows off. This is where we are seeing these people shooting, and yet it was supposed to be said out and someone else takes over. Either in the law department, that person will take over and really they bring a counselor in amidst, like those experts we have in the studio now. So actually, that is my area of concern. I request kindly the government to really lower the tone. They make people to express their feeling openly. And for those who are having no jobs, they should really say it out and they should be helped. That is the kind experience I want to say it out. I have that short and brief. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Arnold. And thank you for being part of UBC.
All right.
We're proud of you. Number of people raising different concerns here on UBC. Ground Zero on UBC.
Hello.
You're live and clear.
Yeah, this is Henry Waguma.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, the panelists, for that expert contribution.
Thank you, sir.
My view is this case is on increase. You know, until then we knew mad people. That has been the talk, and mad people are supposed to be isolated, are supposed to be rounded up, so, you know, that type of thing. But now it is emerging. First of all, there are no group called mad. It is distress. It is a disturbing thing. So there's need, therefore, to review the whole process regarding mental cases. I have a feeling that the government needs to increase funding. Yes? To institutions like Butavika Hospital, Milago Hospital, universities, but also that in the community also need to have psychologists fully paid and supervised by the government. And in markets, in taxis and the industry, all these areas, and schools, for example, so that everybody is aware of these type of conditions. And when they identify, people are given early treatment rather than waiting until some of them even commit suicide at the end of the day as a last resort. So I think if this government funds programs of that nature and increase the psychologists around the country, and also should be a course even in the military, in the police, in the schools, areas like in this is Nali, Chankwanzi, there should be a presentation during such sessions in churches. I think that way, this condition of mental cases can be reduced. That's my contribution. Otherwise, you should stop lamenting all the time. Lamenting is not a solution. It only adds to the worries already existing. Thank you.
You're most welcome, sir. Government needs really to increase funding to especially the facilities, Marago and Utabika and many others that are doing this very important role. Number of people of Uganda raising a number of issues. Agaba from Wakiso sent a message and says, how do we detect how do I detect that my neighbor, relative or friend is becoming mentally unstable? What are the signs and symptoms? And Jacqueline sent a message from Kawempe, says, what should we do to have first aid in that case? Does mental disorder have first aid? UBC?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
Michael calling from Ginger.
Michael from Ginger, we are glad that you are tuning in.
I propose that the Uganda police be equipped with methods and all ways of treating mental health. Let it be a training for police like human rights. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. I like that. Government and security agencies, of course, people of Uganda are concerned because of recent we have had a number of cases of shooting and gun violence in this country, and I think it is coming from mental health. UBC.
Good morning, Amon.
A very good morning to you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm Dixon. I'm calling from Tinda.
Dixon from Tinda.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Your concern, please.
My concern just little. For me, I saw it cuts across because it varies from the place to place. When you go down there in the village, you find it is the abuse of substance. When you come to town, you may find it is the internet or alcohol, and this thing varies from the place to place. For me, I can see somehow it is the parents, they lost parental. Because when I walk around in my village, I saw these opiums, they are growing on the compound. The eldest is there passing, the parent is there. Nothing. They see it as it is a vegetable. Now you see these young people, they are smoking, they are boozing, marunzi. In a home of 10, you will find one person who is not well in mental. So it is become very, very, very dangerous. We need to take action.
All right.
Sensitization. Sometimes even you try to talk to people, no one is listening to you. I don't know where we are going. So government needs to step up. We take the environment. Everything must be in the village to implement those things.
All right.
Thanks for your program.
Thank you, Dixon.
Yes, sir.
UBC Ground Zero, we're broadcasting live on 4 radio stations. UBC Radio in Kampala, UBC Table in eastern parts of this country, Western Isle FM in Western Isle has also covering Teso Sub-Region, Acholi Sub-Region, Lango Sub-Region, and Karamoja Sub-Region. We also live and clear on Magic 100 FM, covering central parts of this country. We're also streaming live on YouTube. You just enter UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of the conversation. Ampere Amon Ortega is my name. We are addressing the challenges of increased number of mental cases in Uganda. My dear panelists, you have heard from the people of Uganda raising pertinent issues about our topic today and from our discussion. I will give you some time before we went for a break. I had heard from Deo. Let me start with you, Brian, and then Dr. Kenneth. Especially, let's start with the concerns of the people of Uganda. What do you have to tell them according to what the raised concerns were? Brian?
Thank you, Amon. A big applause to the listeners of UBC, especially to this program. And I want to particularly thank Henry. I think for him, he has launched a robust attack on mental challenges that it should not just be a conversation around it and there should be something going on. But yes, it's good. Before you blame government, you need to look at your own contribution as an individual. What are you doing? That is a very key question to ask yourself. Two, let us really look at the matter of parenting. Kenneth had talked about something which is very crucial, being a community child. Today, Amon, I want to tell you, people want to live good life and access it very fast, very quickly, and have it in their hands immediately. People want good life. People want money. People want good things. People want easy life, access it easily. People want to be like their role model. Do not tell them to answer the question of how they have got on top. Do not ask them any question in relation how they intend to achieve their goals. All they want is what they want, and it is set clearly in the way they wake up, the way they move, the way they dress. Because, Henry and listeners, you will not blame government for sure. Today, if you made a survey in Kampala among the people who are having, how many people who are having, I don't know the latest iPhone, the model, I don't know. And I wouldn't also wish to make an advert for it. But I know that the latest good phone doesn't go below 1.5. And Amon, I think you agree with me.
True that.
A million shillings. But in this Uganda, what can a million shillings do in economy is a great thing in one's future, in one's career. We have parents who are having business worth 500,000 and they are taking care of their families. The other thing is government is not, I entirely don't want to look at government. Government is supervises and puts policies and all that. But if government has done its part, there are hospitals in Uganda. Well, and what people are not looking at, you find people lamenting, yes, making noise about medicine in the hospital. Yes, there are no medicine in the hospitals simply because patients have overwhelmed. When government is putting out a budget, it has not put a projection that today, this year, we are likely to get 1,500 patients, mental cases. They plan according to people who are, but I have told you there are people who are born with mental problems, distress, and related to the nature of pregnancy management and parents. So the people have also overwhelmed that the services that are available in the country. Number three is parenting. Amon, there is no way how government will come and guide you on how you're supposed to deal with your children and how you're supposed to raise them. Yes, there are laws, human rights, child rights, what, but read them clear and understand them. Learn how to communicate with your children. You know what you want from them. They're your children. They are not anybody's children. So, you show them what giving respect means. The world has shifted from the rudimentary methods of raising children. It is now digital. There are people there are children who have grown with their parents and they have never seen them. They only see them on the internet and daddy, mommy, how are you, like that on video call and all that. But they are growing. So parenting, that goes back to individuals. Secondly, is irresponsibility kind of living. You wake up, you want to drink, you get Uganda Waraji, mix it with John Walker, Guinness, Tascarite, you drink it. Is that Katogo? you can't fail to stagger left, right, center. If you are drinking irresponsibly, then who is really, where do you want government to do what? Then you drink, okay. Are you feeding well? Are you doing balanced diet? Are you now? When we talk of all these issues,
okay,
we need to also focus on our individual input as individuals on addressing some of these things that are leading to the rise of mental well-being. Lastly, on that, Amon, I also want to state that the government can have a contribution in a way they manage affairs. Like, for example, poverty levels. and Andrew had earlier talked about it. I agree with him that when you look at the statistics that are shown in sites where we can access them, and then for us who go to community, there is a big mismatch. People are sick.
Interesting. But before I let you go, also someone said, how do I detect that my neighbor, friend, or relative is becoming mentally
Thank you. I
unstable?
Thank you. You have reminded me that I was actually thinking about.
Do we have signs and symptoms?
Yes, very many of them, and we see them on daily basis when such cases happen. One is withdraw from the community. Like if you had a staff here and you see him or her to withdraw, he no longer talks to anybody, everything. He has built a wall. He doesn't want you to know what is happening in his or her private life or in her social life. They close themselves into headset life. Every time they are putting headphones, they are listening to whatever they are listening.
They have started becoming mentally ill.
They are telling you, they are signaling that
something
things
is wrong.
are not okay. That one, withdraw from the society, then change in dress code. They resort to drug dependence, alcohol or marijuana or what. Then sleeping. Somebody can be in bed from morning up to evening. Isolation. They isolate themselves from the rest of the members. Mood swing. Today is happy, tomorrow is not. Today is talking, tomorrow is not talking. Then you also understand them from their eating behavior.
Eating too much or eating less?
Either way. Eating too much or eating less, but also not eating at all or eating alone.
But someone can say, I'm sick, I don't have appetite.
These are combination of. It is not a one item identification that this person is in the line of this. So those are some of the signs that you can look at.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Kenneth, you've heard from the people of Uganda raising different concerns, and they're pinning you who are in the ministry and also in government.
Thank you so much, and thanks to all the callers and people who are listening and our listeners for contributing to this talk show. Well, I want to look at the issue of addressing or tackling mental wellness or mental well-being differently. And I think from my earlier communication, you note that mental health, mental illness, mental health issues should be of concern to everyone because we are all affected. And so we need concerted efforts. So the approach that we must take to address these mental health challenges is a whole of government, whole of people, whole of sector, whole of society approach. So that means everyone has a role to play in terms of addressing mental health challenges. When you addressing a mental health issue or illness, we can start from, remember, the basics of health. There is primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention before you actually get the illness. And also there's a pyramid of care for persons with mental ill health. And you know that the majority of people with mental health issues and problems are actually in the community. And then the first level of care is the primary health care, when you go to the health centers up to district hospital or general hospital, and then up there we have specialist care. And we have 13 regional referral hospitals with mental health units that provide specialist care, and one national referral hospital in Butavika Hospital. So that is at the peak of the pyramid. So saying with that in the communities, everyone has a role to play, and including the parents. I agree with the speakers that parents need to be guided in order to how to manage. And I like the first caller. He brings out the frustration of a modern day parent. It's like, for us, we were caned when they were raising us. How come we cannot cane our children and it works for them that way? I'll start with a quote from an American psychiatrist called Aaron Beck. He said that what stresses us is not what happens to us, but our interpretation of what actually happens to us. And that is what causes us stress. In the past, when we were being raised, the mode of discipline, and he used the word disciplining and not punishment, the mode of disciplining was beating. Sapatu, cane you, and it was normal for us as children, because you go to school, every child has been caned. Like I was slapped, the other one I was beaten 3 canes, and we did not interpret beating, or children of that time did not interpret beating as something bad or negative. Okay. But as time has gone on, with modernization, industrialization, the advent of internet, the advent of watching things, the advent of connecting with people, and education as well, we note that there are different ways of actually disciplining a child other than beating them. Because beating them is some sort of trauma, and you inflict pain. Nobody deserves to, have bodily pain because of something they can do. Yet you can have other alternative ways of actually disciplining a child and without beating them. And so these children also watch TV.
But you also know that spare the rod, you spoil the child.
Well, that is a saying that I said, but let me just clarify this. And the road is figurative there. It's not. It's not directly interpreted.
So do you think that
concrete
beating
thinking.
is not only old-fashioned, but it would not help in any way of disciplining a child?
It does. Okay, let me just complete my statement, and then we can come to that. That in that way, the challenge nowadays with beating is how the children interpret the beating. The modern day child is, if I'm beaten, I go to a school where all my colleagues, nobody else is beaten but except me. My father beat me, and all the other children, none of their parents has beaten them. And I also watch in cartoons and things like that, beating is bad. So what will the child interpret? My father is a bad person. I think my father hates me because he beats me. No other child is beaten within the place where I come from. So how does the child react? Reacts with resentment. He starts to hate the child, and before you know it, there's a barrier in communication, or sometimes he feels stressed, he feels disloved, he feels the world is unfair, everyone is against him, and he takes to alcohol and substances. The majority of children or young people that I see, and young adults that I see in my clinic, have had childhood traumas, and some of them is because of extremely tough parents. Some of them is because they lost their parents when they were young and they had to stay in other places. Yeah, and these traumatic events affect the children's psychology, and sometimes they grow up knowing that they are not loved, they are alone, they have low self-esteem, and all those things have recipe for mental illnesses such as anxiety and depression. So we should know that the tides have changed, despite the fact that beating worked then.
Tides have changed, but to the worst. Comparing the two societies, the African setting and this modern way, you would find that, as most of the callers said, we are given much freedom, which this freedom is a destruction, is a disaster. It is leading us to destruction. People are free, like you said, you don't beat your child because you don't want to distance yourself or create that gap between you and your child. And this child is given that freedom, and he knows that I am free. I'm free to take alcohol. I'm free to take marijuana. I'm free to smoke. And where does this lead them?
So
become mad.
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
I agree, and that's where the complexities come in. Is that now parents have to be deliberate and know that times have changed, because there's nothing we can do about the changes in time. These are natural processes. The US, you go to Britain, to the UK, they probably went through these times as well in part of their development to where they are now. And we're in that stage of life, and there's nothing we can do about it. So parents have to be strategic now and be intentional. Spend some time with your children. Give them those values that you want them to learn, because if you don't, nobody else will. In the past, the community used to do it because we were as one. But now everybody is busy looking for their money, everybody is busy looking for survival, and so on and so forth. So it is difficult. So in whatever things that we do as parents, spare some time, talk to your children, listen to them, understand them, and also transfer the values that you want, that you want them to be. Otherwise, you'll become strangers in the same house.
Not become strangers in the same house as parent and children. And the doctor said you should be deliberate and create more time with your children. Before I let you go, doctor, what should I do? Do we have first aid in that case of mental disorder? Like I've detected some of the signs that Brian has just told us. What do I do to this member in my household or in my community?
Okay, so I'll grade that into the forms of mental illness. So there are these types that we call the internalizing mental illnesses and externalizing mental illnesses. So now the internalizing mental illnesses are some of the symptoms that he pointed out. That I'm feeling sad and I'm actually stressed and distressed. I will not go and talk to anyone. I will withdraw myself. I will not
lock myself in my room.
Yes, for example, my appetite goes down. I will not interfere with anyone. My sleep is totally disturbed, but I won't tell someone. I'm extremely worried. I'm very anxious all the time. My work productivity goes down. I'm irritable. Small things annoy me very fast, and so on. I maybe because of all this, I take to alcohol, but again, I drink alone in my sadness. Okay. So once you notice something happening like that, and again, as I told you, that mental illnesses affect the way we behave, the way we feel, and the way we think. So once you notice something like that, you can walk up to that person and ask them to get help. And there are certain simple ways we can do this without necessarily stigmatizing. We have so much stigma within, but I want us to know that let's support people having trouble and challenges, because we are all in that space. We are all in the struggle together. And today is me, tomorrow is you, tomorrow is someone else. So let's not stigmatize, but look towards supporting them. So you can walk up to them and say, I've noticed there's a change in your life nowadays. You used to do this, but something is happening. Is there a way we can help you? Is there a way? And then you maybe express places where they can go and get help. Now, those are the most complex illnesses to get, because as you note that the people don't come out. Sometimes they even don't know that they actually have an illness, but they just withdrawn and they don't disturb. Now, there is the other externalizing one, for example, bipolar and psychosis, that they get it today, the whole village is going to know that the person is actually ill. Because he's be disruptive, he will shout the whole night, he will collect rubbish, he will do what? Sometimes they fight, sometimes they are very aggressive, sometimes they talk too much, they think they have special powers, they claim they are people they actually not, or maybe I am the president of the country, I have this and that. And so because of that behavior, people will actually know that there is a problem. So many times those ones
How do you help that
those
person?
ones cannot be managed at home. Okay, because many communities don't actually understand them. So you take them to the nearest health facility, and then the doctors can address them. Sometimes we talk to them, and depending on the level of the illness, sometimes we have to restrain them, depending again on the level of the illness and the insights that they have. That maybe we give them some injection to help them calm down and maybe keep them in a controlled environment until they stabilize and they're able to get in touch with the reality and the environment around them. And then others, just as I summarize, that distress is a mental health issue. For example, something has not gone on well for me, and I react by being violent. I react by shouting. I react by screaming. So this usually happens in emergency situations. It usually happens at home as well. And it's based on the basis that when people lack certain things, they become distressed. And once distress is like extreme distressed, and they react differently. They can shout, they can refuse to talk, they can scream, they can threaten even suicide, or they can threaten to harm someone. But just because of the distress or something that has happened to them. So once you know that someone is having those issues, you know that they are having a mental health issue and not a disorder. Okay, and not an illness, but they're having an issue because of extreme stress. And the way you help such people is getting close to them. You look at what they are having or what they are experiencing or what they are doing. And then you get in touch with them, ask them what the challenges are, and then you try to support them access the things that they need. Because that is actually what we call psychological first aid. Because distress is like the emotions of someone is bleeding. As you see, once you get an accident, the hand bleeds, or if you get a fracture in the hand, there's bleeding, and then they quickly tie it. Yes,
stop blood
yes,
flowing.
so psychological first aid is like also arresting emotional hemorrhage or emotional bleeding. Someone is bleeding emotionally, and sometimes they cry, they are aggressive, and so on and so forth. So
So
getting
tying them is also
yes,
health.
yes, by getting in touch with them, finding out the issues that they are facing, and trying to
Okay.
link them to the existing supports that are there, that you help them feel calm during a very tough situation that they could be undergoing.
Amy think that Ugandans will not be tying anyone who is stressed, especially from work and.
To what on top of what doctor has said,
in a minute.
Is also to get in touch with their next of kin, establish their contacts. You don't just come and grab somebody and
And
tie,
we tie them.
because there could be conditions that are well known by the next of kin or the family members, and it doesn't necessarily need somebody to be rushed to Tabaka from UBC here.
And others take them to police.
Even you can, it's also a safe place. By the way, even police is a safe place because they can manage it within the law. If something is done outside police, it's different from when it is done within the yard courts of the police. So also among the many things, establish contacts. When somebody is identified, immediately try to get their names, try to get the contacts of their next of kin, try also to get the names of the family members and also their workplace. Or if they are also intentions of suicide, also try to establish that and make sure the efforts are to make that person safe and save life.
What would be the solution to the usage of too much internet? People no longer eat, people no longer work, people no longer greet and associate. We have spent if I may say, it is 80 or to 90% of our time to our phones, our computers, and all the others. And according to Utabika Hospital says, it has contributed to the biggest number of patients that they're receiving. As I'm getting your way forward, also put that in mind. Let me start with Deo. What is the way forward generally on mental cases and mental health in as far as Ugandan society is concerned?
Thank you, Amon. Thank you, Dr. Kalani, and thank you, my colleague, Brian, for your submissions. I think they were straight on point to address the issue in our society. When you look at the Mental Health Act 2018, it has all clear procedures on how these mental health challenges can be handled within society and within already defined standards. For example, we have the Mental Health Advisory Board. I don't know if this board is active. Dr. Kalani can chip in on this. How active is this body as set up by Parliament and sent by also the President?
So the Minister of Health.
Maybe he'll come in when his time is comes.
Okay.
Your way forward and last comment as well.
Okay, basically, we need to have these systems functional because, as earlier said, the Mental Health Act has already defined sort of like bodies, and the body to be specific is the Mental Health Advisory Board that handles, that structures, that promotes, that sets guidelines to already operating service providers, because the way the current health system is, let's say even the practitioners who are running these private facilities, we have monetized how this let's say this we have monetized basically health before finding out that how can we help and help address this. You find already the institutions that are institutions that are handling, some private institutions that are handling these cases prioritize first money, which shouldn't be the case. And the role of the Mental Health Advisory Board here should be ideally to regulate some of these service providers to see that if much as we need the money, there should be service first in the community. And I think there is one caller who highlighted the budget. I think he highlighted something on a low budget. I think much as the resource envelope is constrained in the country, let's say the legislators and the players need to advocate for an increase in a budget to be directed into mental health, because 1% can't be able to handle what we see in a society to be a growing challenge.
All right.
Then to handle this, I think we also need to, let's say, encourage so much training basically to so many people out there. It shouldn't be something that should be only handled by the medical practitioners, but people. I think we can come up with programs within the law to see that people are trained on how to manage this before it goes beyond our limits.
Your last comment, sir?
The last comments, we need to have a collective effort toward addressing these mental health challenges, and that calls for cooperation, that calls for, I think, also teamwork.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian Arnaitwe.
Thank you. I'm on once again. And use of internet. Are we talking about use of internet or misuse of internet? I think it is misuse of internet. I said from the start that even if you don't want to change, the change will change you. And we all agreed at certain point that these are modern times. There is no way you will stop. You can tell somebody not to go on computer. You can tell a person not to use a phone. But if you don't make that person understand why you are saying those restrictions to him or her, then you are inviting that person to secretly dig, know what exactly you are hiding. There should be, if possible, a policy on regulating the content that today we buy phones and register them. To an extent that now that they have nationalized and digitalized the national IDs, they can know that Brian has Techno, come on 18. They can know that Kenneth has Techno, come on 16. They can regulate the content that is saturated in most of these gadgets. But also government can do sensitization on how to use internet for their benefit, especially commercial, because there are very many businesses one can do on internet. The other point is we are looking at the most the threatening area is that youth are the most affected of all this circus that is going around the mental health stuff. Well, if they are the majority, you expect them to be affected by. But then the question is, what are parents doing about it? Also, the number of youth that are being affected also tells you that parents have slept on the job. They have slept on the responsibility. Then the government, where the government is now on my position is invited, is really to keep to put energy on creating opportunities for these young people to be able to use their energy into production. Because as you may realize today, it is very difficult. Sorry to say, it is very difficult at the moment to start business in Uganda, especially if you have like 2 million. If you start today, tomorrow KCC is on your door, URA is on your door, you need the license, you need the council, money for the community where you are going to work from. They have formed the organization. Before you join them, you must, before you know it, 50% of your capital has gone into things that do not bring productivity in your life. Then the rent. Then also the matter that is very key that government really need to look at is to regulate some of these things. Like, for example, the cost of electricity today. It is too high. We are not using electricity for productivity. We are just using it for, you find a family is using like 10 units charge phones. This one has 3 phones. This one has 4 phones. When you ask, they tell you this one is for Airtel, this one is for MTN. Fear for tracking, and somebody now buys 2 phones or 3. Then the other important matter that we need to look at and address, and this one goes to the church and us as an individuals, the issue of relationship and marriages. Harmony, I think many of us do not understand relationships vis-a-vis marriage.
All right.
We need to, the church need to help us in doing those family counseling and marriage preparation for marriage and all that. People are living in stressed relationships. They are containing a lot of things, and at the end of the day, somebody bursts into what people term into a mad person, but when actually it is a failed relationship, and it has been walking on eggshells for a long time. So
your last comment,
really, we also need to look at that. Finally, I want to thank UBC for continuously thinking and developing these programs that focuses on the local person, that really helps somebody discover his strength or her strength in contributing to his well-being, and in socially, politically, and psychological, and even other areas. I want to thank you And if there is still time, really keep inviting people who understand how this one is addressed. Continue delivering this service to people for free. You never know, like today we may have helped like hundreds and hundreds in this conversation, because some of these things are actually not even difficult. It's just a trigger. A mind is just a trigger. So I hope that people benefit from this and they continue to listen to UBC. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Dr. Kenneth Karani.
Thank you so much. I'll just cluster my summary in two ways. One is I want to maybe give small tips that people can use to actually stay mentally healthy. Then maybe I'll make suggestions on what can be done as a country as well to improve mental wellness. One is social support. You talk about internet, spending so much time on internet and so on and so forth. Nature abhors virtue. You've heard of that saying. That in a circumstance where social support is not there or is becoming less and less, or it's breaking, people will find a substitute, and internet is becoming that substitute. So I, as an advice or as a piece of advice to all Ugandans listening, is that let's us rebuild our social support networks, because during these tough times, during circumstances, we all face stressful challenges, and we need people around us to support you. And once you support someone, you will be supported at some point. But also, you have the opportunity of listening to someone's challenges. So let's not abandon our social networks. Let's go back to our core values as Ugandans, because we derive our or thrive from social support and social networks. So let's strengthen that as well. Let's learn to speak out when you're having stressful challenges. Speak out to people. They say a problem shared is a problem halved. So once you talk about something, it helps you realize it, appraise it better, and probably realize that you're not alone in this, but everyone is else, and probably even come up with solutions other than bottling them up. So speak up and ask for help if there are very many people that can be willing to support you. Please ask out for help. Let's also learn to draw boundaries. Sometimes the needs put on us are too many and too much that we cannot even meet them. And then we struggle to meet those needs all the time. So let's try to know what we can control and what we can't control. And if it is beyond your means and it's overstretching you, learn to say no and draw boundaries. Take time to get some sleep. Avoid use of alcohol and other substances to cope with your problems, and also do things that you enjoy on a day-to-day basis. Those simple tips will help you overcome the day-to-day stresses and challenges that we face. On the Ugandan perspective, mental health, we need to raise awareness, as we've noted that there are challenges in schools, in communities and workplaces, and that's where the challenges actually originate from. If we tackle that issue earlier, we shall not need to go to Butavika Hospital or to hospital, for example. So let's lay strategies within schools, within workplaces that can help identify and support people within these places and not stretch them. And this goes to managers, this goes to school leaders and school heads as well, and even community or local leaders. Let's put across strategies that can support people, talk about their issues and actually identify their issues and support them, perform their work while they are in those places. I think that is very key. Secondly, raising awareness is also really, really important. Mental health has a lot of alternative explanations of mental illness because of the way the people present. Sometimes we think it's possession. Sometimes we think they are possessed by an evil spirit. Sometimes we think it's witchcraft and so on. And the way we interpret it or explain the symptoms will determine where people go. In Butabika, close to 70% of patients that come there have first gone to a traditional healer or faith healer as a remedy, and they come to Tawika Hospital as last resort, and these things delay care and complicate care. So let's raise awareness. We know that mental illnesses are real and they can be treated because it's a disease of the brain. And let's not stigmatize the people and saying that they are possessed or they are cursed or so on and so forth. These are illnesses like any other illness, and they can be treated. There's treatment, and people can be treated with dignity and supported so that they can get back their normal life and live life to their full potential. So let's support them, knowing that for as long as you have a brain, you are a candidate, and treat someone with a mental illness the way you'd want to be treated if you were mentally ill, because this can happen to any of us. So we also, someone raised about funding issue, and that is a real need. We get as mental health, the section of the budgetary allocation is really small, and you note that the issues are increasing. So we urge the powers that be to increase funding to meet the needs that are actually there, because we've noted that they are increasing. We also need to strengthen regulation of alcohol, substances, and even addictive behaviors, because now there is the Narcotic and Psychotropic Substance Act introduced as a new bill in Parliament. And there we urge all the powers that be and the honorable members of parliament to please not take away marijuana, which is cannabis, and cat, which is mairungi, out of that list, because those are the most common substances other than alcohol that is damaging our children. So let's support, and we put these regulations there so that access at least is minimized, that in the event that the people want to access these things, they cannot effectively get that.
All right.
And lastly, I want to summarize by saying that in order for us to tackle and address mental health challenges and improve mental wellness of the country, because the brain is the powerhouse. You perform, you are who you are because your brain functions the way it does. So we need a concerted effort, and it's everyone's business and problem. Do not point fingers to government or line ministries or sectors. We all need to come together as a country and take care of our responsibilities, so that we take care of our own mental health and the mental health and well-being of the children and young people who are our future as well. Thank you so much, and thanks
Most welcome
for inviting me here.
All right. Thank you so much, our dear guests, for sparing time to come and educate the people of Uganda. It is really important that we come and help the people, especially those who are concerned, citizens of this country, to take up this information seriously, because we believe information is power, and we can help each other as we fulfill the calling of Dr. Mutumba, the Deputy Managing Director of Batabika Hospital, who called upon all people who have the ability to influence communication, to educate, including the media, health professionals, like the ones that we have in the studios today, the training institutions, religious leaders, should talk about mental health, and I think that we have done this to the very best in this very program, and we believe that people have picked a leaf in our conversation today. So thank you so much, Dr. Kenneth Karani, the psychiatrist and senior medical officer who is coming from Ministry of Health. And also we had Arnetwe Brian, is a psychology counselor coming from Chambogo University and Nakasero Hospital. Thank you for sparing time to come and educate the people of Uganda. And we must also thank you, Andrew Dewo, Ongulapals, co-founder Free Mind Therapy. We've been talking about addressing the challenge of an increased number of mental cases in Uganda. And I believe that you have had something that you can pick for your relative, friend, or even yourself. And I thank you, all the callers and all those who sent their messages, and all the listeners. You are, because we are, and since we are, I believe that you have been inspired. And this is what we call UBC Inspiring Uganda. This was UBC Ground Zero for this week. Until next time, same program, same stations, different topic, and perhaps different guests. George Ngovi is coming your way on the journey on UBC Red, and other programs coming your way on Table Radio, Western Isle FM, and Magic 100 FM. Until next time, I'm Pere Amon Ortega is my name. Allow me now to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Your favorite national, accurate, balanced, concise and comprehensive newscast. News Hour aired at 1 p.m. from Monday to Friday, right here on UBC Radios. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
This is Independent Sound.
UBC has 11 sister radio stations spread throughout the country to educate, inform, and entertain. Tune into UBC Radio FM